My name is Billy Gunnels. I'm the director of FGCU Scholars, and this is the result of our 5th year university-wide assessment, where we are looking at the development of transferable skills in rising sophomores and graduating seniors in terms of their critical thinking, information literacy, and written communication. As you probably remember, FGCU Scholars is our Quality Enhancement Plan. As this is the 5th year, this is the information we'll be using as part of our interim report, which you'll discover pretty soon. It's all good news. 2, our Quality Enhancement Plan was designed to enhance student learning and the development of these transferable skills by doing 2 things. 1, enhancing the culture of undergraduate research, creative and scholarly efforts, faculty mentors, beyond classroom type of things, symposia, great stuff. And then 2, that's 2, by the way, 2, by integrating these skills within the courses that students take. So the first year courses, what you see here, second year, third year, and graduating seniors, what we see here. And what we've seen over the past years, there are 100 sections where 2,000 plus students have started developing these skills in their first year. And then as they move into their majors, there were over 1,000 sections and over 26,000 students took at least one course. So that on average, every one of our undergraduates took more than 2 courses this past year that try to develop these skills as students become more scholarly in their major. Every year, we run a university-wide assessment looking at artifacts that students produce in general education, as well as the 8 academic units, the 4 in arts and sciences, visual and performing arts, humanities, social sciences, and natural and physical sciences, and then the 4 professional colleges. The previous 4 years, we did this in person. This past year, because of COVID-19, we did this virtually. We use modified value rubrics to look at different measures of written communication, speaking to an audience, writing to a discipline, using proper syntax and mechanics. 2 measures of critical thinking, developing compelling, relevant arguments, and then analyzing and synthesizing information effectively. And then 2 measures of information literacy, identifying high quality sources, and then using that information for specific purposes. So this is the big take home. You succeeded. Well done. Over 5 years of effort, we have seen steady growth and improvement of both rising sophomores, our first year students, and our students that are graduating and going on to bigger and better things. Cheers on you. This is huge. So what you're looking at the top is you're looking at a single measurement for each student across the 7 criteria. So that each dot represents the score of a student. This first bar, that is the first year we started FGCU Scholars, our baseline. Second year, third year, fourth year, 5th year. So what we saw in terms of our composition students is a general overall improvement from the beginning of the QEP until now. What's more, our students are really on an incredible foundation. Our first year faculty, our general education faculty, have done an incredible job in ensuring students have a foundation that they continue working on in their majors. When they go to majors, what we see is the same basic trend, a general overall improvement from that baseline to our final years, so that now rising sophomores have seen a 32% gain, graduating seniors an 18% gain. That's huge. Thank you. That's a commitment of the colleges, the departments, the programs, the faculty, the staff, and the students all coming together to making sure that we can help each other and help our students be better by the time they graduate, so they can use the skills of university and apply them in all the thousands of different ways they will after the graduation. Cheers to you. Small note, this is the first year ever we had students who got a 4 for all 7 different measurements. That's never happened till this year. Faculty assessors identified 2 students who got all 4s, and student assessors identified 3 of their peers who got all 4s. I never thought I was going to see a perfect student. We have students that are now perfectly adept at graduating. Yay. Okay, in terms of this year and how much improvement we see from that general education, composition experience to graduation, it's large. We see roughly a 30% gain in our graduating seniors relative to rising sophomores. Again, our students are starting on an incredible foundation because of the general education faculty. And then as they go into their majors, they continue developing those skills so that we see heighten written communication, heighten information literacy, and improve critical thinking all the way. Excellent growth. We do use these assessments, though, to identify areas in which we, as a community, need to further enhance. And what we're seeing in our students is they tend to be most adept in communicating to a specific audience in communication context, both in terms of our seniors and in terms of our rising sophomores, our first-year students. And they tend to be better in terms of speaking to a specific audience than they are in terms of their critical thinking and their use of information effectively. So they tend to be better in speaking to an audience than they tend to be in terms of critical thinking and some measures of information literacy. This is going to come up again. One of the things that this assessment has allowed us to do, because we're looking across the university and we're looking at the capstone artifacts that students produce in different majors, it's allowed us to compare students that do different types of capstones. Ones in which they do case studies, ones in which they do internships or service learning as their capstone, ones that do reflective essays as their capstones, and then those students who do research. And what we've discovered is those students who do research show further development in terms of all the transferable skills than ones that do different types of capstones. This is an overall score for each individual student, and students that do research show about a 13% better development than ones who do reflection, internship, service learning, and capstones. That's great considering I'm the director of an office that supports student research, but we want to understand why and how. Well, first thing we notice is that going through the entire process of research tends to help students. So what you're looking at here is you're looking at students that went through the entire research process, from the research stage where they're doing literature reviews, developing a proposal, to the implementation stage where they're actually running the study, collecting the data, analyzing the information, to the dissemination stage where they take that idea, they synthesize it, they come up with their arguments, and then they actually share it out. These students show among the highest written communication, information literacy, and critical thinking skills. Students that participate in research, but really participate in an early stage of research, so they get a scholarly process, those students do well. They do well. They do better than other types of capstones, but they don't show as much development in terms of information literacy and critical thinking as the students that go through the final process. So we have this disconnect. We're really going through the entire process seems to help our students the best. In addition, there is this role in which information literacy seems to be particularly important in developing more skills. Students that engage the academic literature, the scholarly literature, the primary literature, the secondary literature, they show higher transferable skills than students that develop popular literature, whether this be magazines, whether this be newspaper articles, which show reduced development in terms of their writing. Not surprising, reduced development in terms of their information literacy, but also reduced development in terms of their critical thinking. So engaging in the academic literature tends to help students develop other transferable skills. Our reflective capstones really highlight a unique situation because some of these reflective capstones had students describe their academic experience, but then put that experience in context to their major and the writing of their major and the literature of their major and the discipline in large. And these scholarly reflections, one in which students wrote about their experience, but then used the literature to describe that experience, performed among the highest of any students we have seen over the past 5 years. And those students which did a reflection, talking about their experience, I felt, I thought, I did, these students, not surprisingly, scored low in information literacy. It wasn't there. But they also had a difficult time writing. And they had a difficult time synthesizing their own experiences and developing an understanding of what they actually got out of that experience. So I'm actually going to call a spade a spade. These are art students, and this is our art program, and they're doing an incredible job as I have students write artist statements, but then put those artist statements in context to other artists and artistic movements, and those students are able to communicate and able to demonstrate why they do the work that they do in ways that are really impactful and are going to help those artists go on after they leave FGCU. Just going through reflection without taking that extra step of engaging the major, though, doesn't appear to be helping our students much at all. And these scores are lower than some of our first-year students as a result. So we had student assessors, we had faculty assessors for the past 2 years. We've asked students and faculty to come together to run the assessment. So this past year, on our first 2 sessions, we had 15 faculty and staff and 15 students. So I wanted to take a look at sort of how students were assessing peers relative to how faculty assessed their students. And what we see overall is that students and faculty describe the same basic pattern. In context, we'll see in a second, is higher than things like critical thinking. But overall, students are assessing their peers higher than faculty and staff, and that's fine. Honestly, it's not the absolute level in an assessment that's really valuable. It's the comparison between different areas. And what our students were noticing was the same basic thing our faculty and staff were noticing. When they looked at seniors, they noticed that the seniors were able to write to a specific audience, but they were having trouble basically analyzing information and putting it into a context so that there is an overall finding. Among the rising sophomores, student assessors saw the same basic patterns. Their ability to communicate to an audience was relatively high, but communicating to a discipline was compromised, and their ability to demonstrate critical thinking through the writing was also not as well developed. So student assessors found the same basic thing that faculty assessors did, and that is we really do need to help our students develop their ability in terms of synthesizing information, analyzing information, and then using that to develop their overall ideas. So I've also asked the assessors to evaluate their experience. We'll take a quick look at that. To look at these figures, this red dotted line, that means neutral. Any score below that red dotted line means the experience of the assessment was poor. Either the norming didn't work or the assessment didn't work. Any dots above the red dotted line meant that the experience of the assessment was good. The norming was effective. The ability to evaluate different disciplines was good. The ability to do an assessment was good. What we see overall, based on these boxes and the individual dots, is that the experience was good. Everyone felt they could do the assessment, regardless of whether it was in person or virtual. They could do it. And students and faculty both thought they could assess rising sophomores and graduating seniors. Even though students didn't feel quite as confident, quite as comfortable with the overall experience, everyone felt that they could basically assess learning, that they could assess across different disciplines, they can conform to each other during the norming session, and that they can norm different artifacts. Our assessors gave us really good feedback. Overall, they thought the norming went well, especially this year, the fact that we had to do it virtually. And a lot of people actually said that they preferred it, that they found it to be effective and useful, as you can see by the quote. I actually liked the virtual norming session this year and felt part of the process. That's good. I was concerned, honestly. It seems to have worked. There were lots of suggestions, and these are good. One, making sure that faculty and student assessors get all assignment descriptions. They got most, but some were always missing. Giving out an example of what a 4 looks like, 3 looks like, 2 looks like, 1 looks like. We now have a large body of information, so this is a really good idea that we could give for future assessments. Submit scores before norming, so then we can actually talk about those scores more. And assess all criteria for each artifact, because at the time we would assess maybe like just written communication for an artifact, maybe just information literacy for an artifact. What I did enjoy is there was a lot of variation. A lot of people thought norming in person is better. A lot of people thought norming virtually was better. That's cool. That means maybe it works, and maybe we can provide people a choice in the future. In terms of the university-wide assessment, people thought it went very well, and they were able to do their work. I particularly like this quote from one of our student assessors. It was interesting and eye-opening to read artifacts submitted by scholars in different disciplines. I, the student assessor, have a very eclectic background, so I enjoyed reading the thoughts and ideas of each scholar. Awesome. There were lots of suggestions. One, we need to update and clarify the rubric. We've done it for 5 years. We're still learning from this rubric, but it is probably time that we start to rethink what we want to understand in terms of our student development. We may want to create discipline-specific rubrics, and this is a great idea. It wouldn't be in context to a university-wide assessment, but this is something that individual majors and/or academic units may really want to think about, and we're here to help through that process. One idea that came up, and it's a really good one, we capstone students. We assess them in the first year, we assess them in their final year. It's probably time to start looking across the process so we can see how students are growing and where they might be missing and where there may be disconnects. Include additional majors? Absolutely. At this point, we have assessed roughly 2/3 of all majors, but there is benefit from participating in the assessment. Students learn more after the assessment because faculty take the results and make changes that improve their instruction. So bringing in more majors are going to help those students. And then finally, this is a really good suggestion, though I don't know what to do with it yet. Try to figure out ways to assess programs holistically. What we are doing, it's true, we assess individual students as a reflection of the program. If we can figure out other ways to do assessment, we may be able to learn more about the overall efforts. Take homes. Congratulations, you've done an amazing job. In 5 years, we have shown consistent and overall improvement. That is awesome. As a director of undergraduate research, yay, our research students are doing great. But more importantly, it looks like we might understand why, and we could use that insight about information literacy, especially about academic literature, as a way to enhance experiential learning in all areas: undergraduate research, reflections, internships, service learning, university-wide experiences. This is an important insight that can help all the students, no matter what they do, develop to the full potential. And then finally, having student and faculty assessors is one of the best things that we are doing, as these individuals are able to share ideas and thoughts with each other so that we are all part of the same overall effort. That is the improvement of our university and the enhancement of our students. So, thank you.